Hello everyone, this is Lord Kernan and I am here with a Kings of War battle report. This is my first ever Kings of War battle report that I'm putting up on the channel. I've been playing Kings of War since Age of Sigmar came out. I've really been excited about the game ever since Warhammer decided to destroy the hobby. It was really the only thing that got me excited because the reason I play is massive, mass units on the table. The skirmish games just really don't do it for me. So Kings of War fit the bill, and it's a well-designed game, and I've been really loving playing. So there was a tournament this past weekend in Virginia, so I decided to enter. It was about 20 people there. It was a 2-day, 5-game event, 2,000 points Kings of War. There wasn't a painting score to encourage people to show up. They were allowed to take proxies. There was a painting score, but it was very light. I think like the one person got 5 points. If your army had paint on it, you got 3 points. And if you showed up with an army, you got 1 point. So you really couldn't lose anything for showing up with proxies and showing up with unpainted models to kind of encourage people to show up and play, since wherever all of us are jumping ship from fantasy, we may not have everything we need to play the Kings of War army that we want. So he worked that in there, so it was a lot of fun. Yeah, so I decided to enter, throw my hat into the ring, and see how it went. I know I have a lot of ETC games still to post. I still have 4 more games from the Adios 8th tournament, but that was a couple months ago, and my memory's starting to flag on that, so rather than delay these reports, I figured I'd just get these ones out when memory's fresh, so I can get as much detail as I can, and then I'll go back and do those if I ever get the inspiration. It's just hard to get the inspiration to do battle reports for a hobby that I just don't care about anymore, because they killed it. So yeah, and it's my channel, and I will do what I want. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this Kings of War battle report. This first game is the kill scenario, and I was taking Legions of the Abyss, which are demons, and I was playing up against Tomb Kings. There's like Desert Sand Kingdoms or something. I forget what they call it, but basically it's Tomb Kings. So my Legions of the Abyss army, I have Lesser Abyssal Horde with the CS bonus item. You can give them CS1 if you surrender 1 defensive point. I decided I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep defense 4 and instead gave them the CS bonus. It was an extra 30 points. I could have given them CS2, but I just thought defense 4 would be more useful, so they're just taking CS1. With them, I took an Abyssal Fiend with Fly, and I gave him the item that makes him elite, so he's rerolling 1s to hit. I took 2 Hellhound troops and 2 Gargoyle troops. I also have a Moloch Horde, which is monstrous infantry. I have with them an Abyssal Fiend with Fly and 3 Flamebearer troops. And then finally, I have a Tortured Souls Horde. So I have a lot of drops, 2 big flying fighty characters, and a whole lot of chaff. So I'm going to see how this plays out. For my opponent, this ended up being a grudge match. My opponent grudged me for round 1, which is fair enough. Todd decided to grant it, so he put us on table 1. The first 2 rounds were random table placements, and every round in the future is the top 2 players play on table 1. So for this one, by random draw, I got placed on table 1, and I'm up against this guy that grudge matched me. He's taking Tomb Kings, which is actually a really bad matchup for me. Abyssals don't really do very well versus shooting, and Tomb Kings generally have a lot of shooting, so we're going to see how this goes. So for his army, he has a Revenant Horde, which he did trade out for 2-handed weapons. So he has +1 CS and -1 defense. He also took a CS bonus item to give that unit total CS of 2. So he has Crushing Strength 2, so this unit packs quite a punch. He also has a Tomb King on a Chariot. He has a Sphinx with a catapult and a Balefire catapult. He also took a Mummy Regiment. He took a Chariot Horde with Fire Oil, which is bonus to wound against units with regen. He took a Casket of Souls. He took a Leech King, and he also took a Guardian Horde and a Guardian Archer Horde. So a good amount of shooting, good amount of range, a lot of things that reach out and touch you, and a whole lot of surge. So Tomb Kings can't march. But there's an item in Kings of War, there's a spell in Kings of War called Surge, where if they have Surge 12, you roll 12 dice, and for every score of 4+, you move forward an inch. And if it brings you into combat, that counts as a charge. So Tomb Kings have that one up, though, because every single unit in their army has this thing called like the Casket or something. Which basically what that is for 1 Surge a game, that unit, when they are surged, can add 5 to the number of dice they roll for their Surge. So instead of a Surge 12, it becomes a Surge 17. So they can really surge quite a distance, and it can really lead to some long-range charges, especially if someone starts rolling hot. So that's something I need to work out for. Otherwise, I have the movement advantage because he can't march and I can. So we're going to see if I can take advantage of that and capitalize on it, and yeah, we're going to see how it went. So, going into the deployment, this is my opponent's deployment, going left to right. So for this terrain, forests were height 4, impassable was height 4, and hills were height 4. So everything was kind of equivalent height. You could hide behind things with a monster, but hills basically removed all of that. So hills were really valuable for shooters. So going left to right, he has his Revenant Horde with CS. Behind them he has his Tomb King on a chariot. Next to them he has his Chariot Horde with Fire Oil. Next to them, behind the woods, he has his Leech King. On the other side of the forest, from the chariots, he has his Mummy Regiment. Behind them he has his Tomb Guardians. Next to them he has his Sphinx. On the hill he has his Casket and his Catapult. And then going on the far edge, he has his he has his Tomb Guardian archers. So lined up across from him, I have lined up across from his artillery hill. I have my 2 units of dogs. Behind them, I have my tortured souls. Behind my unit of dogs, I have my first Abyssal Fiend, who is with Elite. Next to them, I have my first unit of Flame Bearers. Next to them, I have another unit of Flame Bearers behind the Impassable. Next to them, I have my... There's a better picture. Next to them, I have my lower Abyssals with CS bonus. Behind them, I have my other Abyssal Fiend. Next to my lower Abyssals, I have my Molochs, and in the back of the board, I have my 2 units of Gargoyles on the back board edge. Generally speaking, I deployed these guys first. They're quick, they are very maneuverable with Nimble and Fly. So they were usually my first 2 drops, unless I needed my Furies, one space in particular, in order to counter something. But they're just really easy drops to put early, so I can see where my opponent starts to deploy before I drop anything important. And then on the far side, I have my last unit of Flame Bearers. So you'll see that we're kind of ignoring the entire left side of the board. I did that in response to what he was doing. He outshoots me, and my army doesn't handle shooting very well. So rather than trying to be cute and go the long way, I'm just going to try to power through, use my superior chaff to block his charges rather than trying to turn a corner, and just close distance to him as quickly as possible to try to take as little shooting damage as I can before I get there. If I take too much damage, my army's very low defense. It doesn't really do well versus shooting. All of my units are defense 4 or lower, and my characters are only defense 5, so they're really not that tough. They're really not that hard to kill, so shooting is just not good for me. So I just want to close to him as quickly as possible and see what I can kill. Here's just more of an overview of his deployment, and we roll off a first turn, and he gets it. So he moves up a little bit. His Revenant Horde goes up a touch, so does his Chariot Horde to get into shooting range. And over here, things scoot forward just a touch as well. Shooting, his catapult missed, which was at least nice. That was a nice little gift that he gave me, but his Forest Guardian archers did not miss, and we're able to put 4 wounds on this guy. Waver was fine, it wasn't a big deal, so he's already wounded. So we're going to see how that goes. Jumping into turn 2, my first turn. And yeah, so I moved forward both of my Molochs and my lower Abyssal Hordes. I jumped my Gargoyles in front of them, both to provide screening for his shots and also to prevent any long-range charges. His chariots can reach my lower Abyssals on a charge. If they do, it's unlikely he breaks me, and then he's getting countercharged by my Abyssal Fiend in the flank. With where he'd have to line up in order to charge me, I'd be in his flank. So yeah, I kind of set that up there that way. Over here, things just kind of pushed forward. My dogs moved into range of his catapult, and his Forest Guardian archers, Molochs, coming up behind them, just out of range of his lower Abyssals. I should have moved up a little bit more to give my Molochs a charge on his Guardian archers, but oh well, I didn't think enough ahead. Shooting, not much happened. The Flamebearer unit on this flank shot at his Sphinx and did 1 wound, so I'm starting to chip away wounds, see what I can do there. So you're going to turn 3, his second turn. He moved forward his Revenant Horde a touch, backed up his chariots though. I think he was worried about a charge from my Gargoyles, which I'm not sure why he was worried about that. Gargoyles don't fight very much, but he decided to back them up anyway, which is fair enough. I'm not going to argue with that. Over here, his mummies move up and start to go around the building, starting to line up against my lower Abyssals. Yeah, there's an overview. And his Forest Guardians moved up a touch more. His Forest Guardian archers actually backed up so that I'd be out of range with my dogs, which is fair enough. Shooting, his chariots opened up on my gargoyles, did one wound only, and they were able to waver them, which really, really sucks. I was hoping I could move them out of the way, especially with this next move. So he surged his mummies, and he used their casket and was able to surge really far and got into a charge on my lower abyssal horde, which is not ideal, but they shouldn't break me. In fact, they really can't break me unless they all hit and wound, and then he rolls hot twice for his break check. So it's unlikely he breaks me, I'll get the counter charge, which is fine. Catapult, though. Catapult hits and did a ton of wounds to my guy. The Forest Guardian Archers also opened up, did a couple more. In total, he did 11 wounds. My guy's nerve 18. He needed a 7 twice, and he rolled it and dropped my Abyssal Fiend, which sucks. Really went down early. Really kind of bad luck there early in the game, but what can you do? Happens. So we go to my turn, too. And yeah, those gargoyles wavering really, really bites. Because as a result, I couldn't move them out of the way. Because of that, my Abyssal Fiend couldn't get into combat, my Molochs couldn't get into combat, and my gargoyles are kind of standing there with their thumbs up their asses, essentially, blocking everything up. So my lower Abyssals countercharge into his mummies. He did 6 wounds to me in his turn. Wasn't able to break me. So I regen a couple of those in my turn, and then I did 6 wounds to him back. So there's that. My dogs were still in charge range of his catapult, so I charged into his catapult and was able to take it off, which was nice. Reform took me out of arc of the Forest Guardian, so they can't countercharge me, which is fantastic. And that was about it. My Molochs moved up, so did my other dogs, to once again get into range of his Forest Guardian archers and try to pressure them a little bit more. So we go to turn 5. And yeah, in my last turn, I had moved up my gargoyles. My other unit of gargoyles, the one that wasn't wavered, I moved up to block both of his chariot and his revenant horde. I didn't want them charging past and into my Molochs. I wanted to be able to isolate the mummies and not let him lend support to them so I could take the mummies off in my next turn. So the gargoyles are blocking, and yeah, so there's that. He countercharged once again with his mummies into my flank, or into my front of my lower abyssals. You can see the Tomb Guardians are moving up towards my Flame Bearers. His chariots turn to face towards my dogs so he can shoot at them, which is I think a good move. Yeah, there's that. Shooting phase, he surges, and he used his casket again, was able to surge into my Flame Bearers to take them off. He also shot with his chariots into my dogs and the lightning into my dogs, did 5 wounds between all that, and was able to waver them because they don't have a great thing. He did 5 wounds total, so he needed a 7 to break them. He didn't quite roll it. He rolled like a 6 or a 5. Either way, it was enough to waver me, though, so they're kind of standing there. They can't do anything next turn. He also did 5 wounds to my Tortured Souls, but they were fine on nerve. And in combat, he took off these Flame Bearers, which is not unexpected. And he also took out this unit of Gargoyles, which once again is not very unexpected. Combat here, though, he went like crazy. I had 4 wounds, and he did 8 out of 12 attacks, hitting on 4s into my lower abyssal. So he rolled out of the box on this one. They're up to 12 wounds. Fortunately, they're nerve 23, so he wasn't able to break them, especially with my Abyssal Fiend right there, providing a reroll. So he bounced back, and we're going to go into my turn now. So my turn now. I no longer, this gargoyle unit regened its wound in my last turn, and was able to move again this turn. So I moved him up to chaff both his revenants and his chariot. I'm not actually chaffing the chariot. The chariot will be able to get around, but the revenants will definitely not be able to. So I'm chaffing that there. And by clearing that way, I was able to get my Molochs into the flank of his mummies, and they're not long for this world now. Between the two of them, one in the flank and one in the front, the mummies should disappear after this turn. I also charged my Abyssal Fiend over all of those units, being height 4, he can see over everything, and charged him into the Guardians here. Charged my Molochs into the front, so this unit also shouldn't be long for this world. My dogs were wavered, but the other dogs were in range of his Guardians, and so I charged into them, hoping to do a wound to prevent him from shooting. As long as I do 1 wound, he is disrupted and is not allowed to shoot. Basically, he'll be forced to countercharge me, which is all fine for me. Combat, I dropped the mummies, I dropped the revenants, or I dropped the tomb guardians, both as expected, and I reform all of that. My lower abyssals also regen a couple wounds. I'm down to 8 wounds now with them. I regen about 4. So we go into turn 7, his next turn. And yeah, the Sphinx moved up and surged in. So I don't have a picture of this, which is why I'm putting it here. His Sphinx moved up a bit in his turn, in his magic phase, shooting phase. He cast Surge on that, used his casket, and surged into my Molochs, which is fine. Over here, he charged his Tomb Guardians into my Gargoyles, and the Chariot went around them into my Molochs. Yep, there's that. He countercharged into my dogs. He did a couple of wounds. His Forest Guardian archers aren't very good in combat. They didn't really do that much, and he wavered me, I think, but I have Fury, which means I can always countercharge, so I'll be able to charge him again next turn. Combat here, his Tomb King went kind of crazy and did 5 wounds to me out of 7 attacks. Really good there. He also dropped my Gargoyles as expected. And in combat with the Sphinx, I don't have a picture of it, but he did 5 wounds to my Sphinx. Or, sorry, not the Sphinx did 5 wounds to my Tortured Souls. He had to roll 8 rerollable to break them, and he didn't get it. So they're still around, so I'm going to be able to countercharge now. So we go into my turn. My Molochs countercharge into him, trying to see how much damage I can do to his Tomb King. Turns out his Tomb King's defense 6, so even with CS2 I'm not hitting that well, so we're going to see how much damage I can do. Over here though, my Molochs charge in, as does my Abyssal Fiend into the flank, so that guy should drop. And then here my dogs countercharge into his archers again. And then in combat, yeah, my dogs, whoo, picking it up. They did 1 wound to his archers. So that gives him a total of 5 wound. He's nerve 17. I roll it up and I roll boxcars. So he's not in range of any inspiring. He can't re-roll it. Brings his total damage points to 17 and breaks him. So pretty spectacular. Dogs really kind of overachieved there. So good on them. Here though, things didn't go quite as well. Right on the heels of rolling a boxcars for the 1 break check, I roll Snake Eyes for this break check. I did like 20-something wounds to this Sphinx between my Abyssal Fiend in the flank and my Molochs in the front. This guy took a ton of damage. And then I roll the break check and I roll Snake Eyes. So doesn't matter how many wounds I did, he sticks around. Which really, really sucks. So he'll be able to countercharge my Molochs. Hopefully, given that my Molochs have Life Leech 2, I'm down to 8 wounds. So hopefully he won't be able to do so much that he drops me. But we'll see. The more dangerous thing is the fact that it means my Abyssal Fiend can't reform, so his chariots might be able to charge me, which just really, really isn't good. In combat here, my Molochs completely whiff. I rolled terribly. I only did 5 wounds, didn't break him, so now my Molochs are in a bit of trouble, so we're going to see how that goes. His turn, his next turn. So yeah, he moved up his chariots towards my king. He's going to, I think, try to surge him into the flank, which is a good and really fair choice. I can't really blame him for doing that. The one consolation I have is that he is going through the woods. He had to go through the woods in order to make it a realistic surge. If he tried to avoid the woods to charge into my flank to keep his TC, he would have had to roll ridiculously high on his surge in order to get to me. So he took the sure thing to make it much more realistic for him to be able to get to me, but in doing so he had to go through the woods, which at least that way it's going to be harder for him to hit and wound me. So there's a good chance my Abyssal Fiend lives through that. His Sphinx countercharged into my Tortured Souls, as expected, so we're going to see how much damage he can do. He might be able to drop me, he might not. And then here the Revenant Horde and his Tomb King charged into my Moloch, so they're probably going to be taken off. They're not very tough, and they're just basically a glass hammer, so they're probably not going to be around at the end of this. So yep, he was able to surge and was able to get in. After combat, he did 5 wounds to me and was not able to break me. His Sphinx did, oh, well, I guess I'll get to that. Shooting his casket unloaded with lightning into my dogs and was able to drop them, but he didn't have enough shooting to do anything to my other dogs. So my other dogs are not wavered. They're free to act next turn. So yeah, pretty good. Pretty happy with that. Here, not very surprisingly, he is able to drop my Molochs and leave my lower Abyssals a clear path to charge what I want. So we're going to see how that goes. His Chariots did 5 wounds to my Abyssal Fiend, and his Sphinx did 4 wounds to my Moloch, so he was on a 6, but he had a reroll, so he was, fortunately for me, did not break them, so they're still around, so that's great. So we go to my turn 5, and I charge. My Molochs go back into the Sphinx. He has more wounds than he has damage than he has nerve on him, so I just need to do 1 wound first nerve check, and as long as I don't roll Snake Eyes again, this thing is dead, so I didn't really need any more support. The Abyssal Fiend countercharges into the Chariots, and then because the Chariots are so deep, my dogs could actually see their flanks. The dogs go into the flanks, so the Chariots should be gone after this, so there's at least that. A really good chance of me breaking them. Yeah, there's a better picture of that. Over here, my lower Abyssals charge into his Chariot, trying to break him, try to get some points, remove the Inspiring. If I charged into his Revenants, it's unlikely I break him for 1, and secondly, he'd have Inspiring, and if he stands, then his Chariot is going into my flank, and the lower Abyssals are going to die. So I charged in there, hoping I break them. If I don't, I'll bounce back an inch, and he'll be in my front charge, so at least there's that. But I was able to kill him with that, which is nice. Shooting, I opened up my other 2 units, Flame Bearers, did a bunch of wounds to his Revenants. He is up to 12 wounds now on this unit, which is nice. So I'm chipping away, so if I can get a dedicated combat unit into that unit, they should drop. So we'll see. Combat, yeah, the Abyssal Fiend and the dogs drop the Chariots as expected, and then so Tortured Souls do another whole bunch of wounds, way more than I need, and I roll a break check and see those 2 ones. Yep, that was the nerve check. That was the nerve check. Rolled Snake Eyes again. So this Sphinx has like 40 wounds on it almost. Yeah, I think he has like 30 something wounds on it now on a nerve 19 unit, but I rolled Snake Eyes twice, so the Sphinx is alive. He's alive to countercharge into my flies, and they're probably going to take them off now. There's nothing I can do about that. Sometimes you get the bear, and sometimes the bear, well, he gets you. So we go into turn 6, Irby's 6th turn. He charges his Revenants into my Abyssal Fiends, or my lower Abyssals. I only have 5 wounds on the unit, so they should survive this. But yeah, we'll see. So he actually has 13 or 14 wounds after my shooting. Over here, his Sphinx charges back into my lower Abyssals. And this time he's able to break me. Yeah, at the end of combat, he did another 4 wounds to me, so I was at 14. I was on a 4 with a reroll. He rolled above 4 twice, and was able to drop the Tortured Souls. So that sucks. Because I was expecting him to drop, and I did the Abyssal Fiend combat first, my Abyssal Fiend is not set up in any way, shape, or form in order to countercharge. So that's really, really unfortunate, because I need to drop that guy for points, because this is a kill scenario, and we're pretty close on points. We come over here, and he swings with his guys, and he rolls out of the box with his Revenants. Oh my god. I only had 5 wounds on the unit, and out of his 25 attacks, I think he did something like 12 wounds or something. I mean, he should get 12 hits, maybe like 10 wounds max. Puts him on an 8 to break me, but he rolled like crazy, and he was on a pretty easy nerve check to break me. So he was able to break the unit. Really unexpected turn of events there, and that actually hurts me a lot. So I need to try to get some points here. Hopefully for me, it goes to turn 7, but we'll see. So turn 12, I don't really have much. My Abyssal Fiend charges into his casket, because that's really all he can do. He can't see the Sphinx. I also wanted to open the opportunity for my Flame Bearers to shoot at the Sphinx, because I only need to do 1 wound, and as long as I don't Snake Eyes again, I will be fine. So we'll see if I can do that. So we go to shooting. I shoot one of my units at the Revenants, and this time it's my turn to roll out of the box. I do with 8 shots hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s. I do 4 or 5 wounds, brings him up to a total of, so he had 12, and I did another, I think I did 5, so it brings him up to 17. So I needed a 6 or a 7 to break him, and I rolled it, and he didn't have any Inspiring left, so I was able to drop the units. That was really fortunate. After his hot rolling last turn, at least I got some hot rolling back, and was able to drop the unit, equalize the points for him getting my lower Abyssals when I didn't expect it to. Over here, my other Flame Bearer unit could draw a line to his to his Sphinx. Was able to do a wound, and this time I did not roll Snake Eyes, thank God. Was able to drop the Sphinx, so the game is starting to swing back towards me, which is really fortunate. And then final act of the game, I charged into the casket and was able to take it off. We did go to turn 7. He moved his sole remaining Leech King out of arc of sight of my Abyssal Fiend and cast a breath weapon on me. He wasn't able to do many wounds, wasn't able to break or waver me. So the game ended like that, because I couldn't charge him or anything. The game ended like that. End result is I was up by about 500 points or so, like 581 points. So the way it worked is if you won by scenario, you won 15-5, and then you got +1 victory point for every 250 victory points that you killed more than your opponent. So you could lose the scenario and get some bonus points for killing more as long as you killed more, or if you win the scenario and kill more, it adds to your 15. It adds to your 15 and subtracts from the opponent's. So after this game, because I won, and that was the objectives, that gave me a 15-5. I won by about 500 points. That gives me +2, so it ended up being a 17-3 at the end of this game. Put me in pretty good position, and I killed most of his army. And he killed most of mine. It was a really bloody game, really fun game. So yeah, so this put me towards the top of the pairings. So next game I will be playing dwarves on a middle table because table placings are random. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this Kings of War battle report, and comments, questions, please post them below, and I will get back to you with the next report hopefully soon. Anyway guys, take it easy, have a good one.